The flashing blue and red lights painted the front of my house like a crime scene. Sirens echoing so loud it felt like my chest was vibrating. And there she was, our HOA president, standing on my lawn screaming into the night, pointing straight at my wife, shouting, "She's a criminal! Arrest her now!" And for a second, I thought my life had just flipped upside down, until my wife stepped forward, calm as ever, and pulled something from her jacket that made the young officer freeze in his tracks, while the smug grin slid clean off that woman's face. When I first moved to Westbrook Heights with my wife, Emily, I thought I was finally getting the quiet neighborhood I'd always wanted. White picket fences, kids biking around, lawns trimmed to perfection. Looked like a postcard. Emily had just landed a big new job. Though she was cagey about the details, asked me to tell anyone who asked that she worked in finance. I didn't think much of it. Figured she just wanted a little privacy. She was always the clever one between us, always thinking 5 steps ahead. So if she wanted to stay low, key for a while, fine by me. It didn't take long to meet the storm-wearing lipstick and a blazer. Deborah Collins, HOA president. First weekend morning. I was digging through boxes in the yard, looking for my rake, when she marched up like she was leading a military drill. Short blonde bob, clipboard under her arm. That pinched smile people wear when they want you to know they're better than you. Without so much as a hello, she shoved a binder into my hands. A thick one. 300 pages of rules and regulations that covered everything from the exact shade of beige for shutters to how long your trash cans could stay visible. I tried to be polite, made a dumb comment about how thorough it was, but her eyes narrowed like I'd just insulted her ancestors. "We take community standards very seriously," she hissed. And then Emily came out, carrying a box marked office. She wasn't dressed for anything formal, just jeans and a T-shirt, but she had that natural air about her. Shoulders back, calm, confident. Deborah's gaze locked on her like a hawk spotting prey. "And you are?" she asked, like Emily needed permission to stand on her own lawn. Emily smiled, introduced herself, and when Deborah demanded to know her profession, she delivered the cover story. Finance. Boring stuff. But Deborah's face twisted like she didn't buy a word. Even the kid next door blurted out, "You look like a cop," and laughed. But the way Deborah's eyes burned, I knew right then she wasn't going to let this go. The harassment started immediately. Daily emails, nitpicking nonsense. My truck's bumper stuck out half an inch past the line. Our oak tree was 2 millimeters too tall. Our trash bins were at the wrong angle. Every message CC'd to the entire HOA board, like she was building a prosecution case. 3 times a day she'd march past our house on inspection patrols, craning her neck, scribbling notes. Neighbors whispered warnings, how she'd forced the Johnsons to repaint their fence 3 times, find a grandmother for the color of her roses, even got a woman's dog kicked out for barking. I tried to laugh it off, but at night, lying awake, I could feel the anxiety tightening in my chest. The first real escalation came on a Thursday afternoon. Emily told me she was on an important call for work. She couldn't step away. Deborah must have known because she pounded on our door for 20 minutes straight, hammering the bell, even peering through the windows. When no one answered, she screamed into the street, "I'll show you who runs this neighborhood." That evening, Emily's expression was unreadable. She just said, "She's escalating. People like that never stop on their own." I should have listened more carefully. But the very next day, an envelope arrived, official HOA stationery. Deborah's name in bold. Inside was a violation notice accusing us of creating a hostile environment by refusing reasonable interaction. Fines of up to $5,000 threatened. I read it aloud over dinner, my hands shaking, but Emily just laughed softly, tore it in half, and tossed it away. "She's digging her own grave," she told me. I wanted to believe her, but that night I couldn't sleep. For the first time I thought about packing up, running to my mother's house. At 30, 5 years old, I felt like a kid wanting to hide from a bully. I hated myself for it. Hated that one bitter woman with a title could make me doubt my own backbone. And then came the day everything boiled over. I was home for lunch when I spotted Deborah across the street, phone set on a tripod, pacing like a prosecutor rehearsing her big case. She dialed 911 on speaker, loud enough for me to hear every lie spill out. "Suspicious woman. Refuses to answer her door. Sneaks around at night. Looks like a wanted criminal." She shrieked, eyes darting to our house. My stomach dropped. Was she really weaponizing the police just because my wife didn't want to chat with her? Sirens screamed down the street 20 minutes later. I froze by the window as a young officer climbed out of his cruiser. Deborah rushed to him, pointing at our house, spitting venom. "That woman is dangerous. Search her home now." The officer looked overwhelmed, clearly knew none of this was making sense. He tried to calm her, asked what crime had been committed. Deborah puffed herself up. "I'm the HOA president. I know this neighborhood, and I know when someone is guilty." I was about to step outside when the garage door opened. Emily walked out, calm, composed, hands visible. She greeted the officer like a neighbor. Voice steady. "Good afternoon, officer. Is there a problem?" Deborah screeched, "She's armed. Look at her hand." But instead of a weapon, Emily pulled out a small silver badge that caught the sunlight like a mirror. The young cop froze. His eyes went wide, and then he snapped to attention so fast I thought he might sprain his back. Chief Reynolds, ma'am. I didn't know." "Chief?" The word ricocheted inside my skull. "Chief? My wife?" I blinked, trying to process. But it was true. She was the new chief of police for the entire city. Something she'd kept hidden even from me until that second. Deborah's face went through every color of the rainbow. Red rage, white shock, green nausea, purple humiliation. The neighbors had gathered by now, whispering, recording, jaws dropping. Deborah looked like she might collapse on the spot. But the worst wasn't over. In her desperation, she yelled, "I have evidence! Proof she's unfit! I'll expose her!" Waving her phone like a weapon, threatening blackmail. The crowd gasped, phones pointed like arrows. Emily didn't flinch. She stepped forward, voice low but lethal. "Show us, Deborah, right here, right now." Deborah stammered, thumb trembling above her screen, then faltered. She had nothing. The young officer scribbled notes, asked if he should arrest her for misuse of emergency services. Emily gave a single nod. Suddenly, the predator was cornered prey. Neighbors booing, old grudges spilling out, fines over garden gnomes, threats over Girl Scout cookies. Endless petty tyranny. The tide had turned, and Deborah stood alone, her power crumbling in front of the very people she'd ruled over. An emergency HOA meeting was called days later. Deborah's last stand. She strutted to the podium in a red blazer, projecting slides of an old newspaper article about a controversial arrest from Emily's past. Twisting facts. Cherry-picking headlines. She tried to paint my wife as violent, corrupt. For a moment, I felt the doubt claw back inside me. Was there truth here? Had Emily hidden more than her promotion? The murmurs in the room grew, hands raising in agreement with Deborah's motion to condemn Emily. My heart sank. Was she really going to lose everything right here? To this woman's lies? But Emily had been silent for a reason. She rose from her seat, walked calmly to the center, and unfolded a document. "You forgot the follow-up, Deborah," she said, voice slicing through the tension. Then she laid it out. The so-called victim was a convicted meth dealer, the injuries from his own explosion, the children Emily had saved from that burning house. She held up letters of commendation from the governor and attorney general, proof that the truth was the opposite of Deborah's smear. The crowd erupted, not in anger at Emily, but at Deborah, furious at being manipulated yet again. Phones captured every second. Deborah tried to sputter excuses, but her voice drowned under the roar of neighbors finally done with her reign. The board voted her out on the spot. The officer who'd been taking notes informed her she'd be facing charges for the false 911 call. Deborah stood there, shaking, shrinking, as if the walls themselves had turned against her. I'll never forget the image of her being led away. Not in handcuffs, but stripped of the smug superiority she'd worn like armor. Neighbors clapped Emily on the back. Kids stared at her in awe. But Emily just gave me a small smile, the same calm smile she'd worn the very first day. The one that said, "Let them dig. They'll bury themselves." Weeks later, a for sale sign went up in Deborah's yard. She vanished from Westbrook Heights, tail between her legs, leaving behind nothing but bitter memories and a community finally breathing free air. And me? I sat on my porch one quiet evening, staring at that empty house, realizing just how close I'd come to folding, to letting her crush me under her fake authority. The truth is, I almost gave up, almost ran, but I didn't. And watching that woman fall, watching justice finally cut through her lies, I learned something I'll never forget. Bullies only win when you let them.